Hey y'all, I'm CQ and this is Spirit Gumbo, the podcast where we stir the spiritual pot with truth, spice, and sass. Today, we're talking about emotional energy vampires, the people in your life who may love you, need you, and lean on you, but leave you feeling spiritually wiped out every single time. We've all been there. And if we're being real, we've probably been that person at some point too. In this episode, I'm sharing how to spot the pattern, protect your peace, and set boundaries without guilt. You'll hear a story time about what it's like being that person everyone turns to, and what it took for me to finally start choosing myself. We'll stir in a spicy gumbo bite called Not My Circus, Not My Drain, pull a tarot truth bomb to help you check your own emotional energy field, and deliver a spirit side-eye to that old belief that family gets unlimited access just because they share your blood. Time to set some boundaries because we're diving deep into the spiritual leaks that drain us from the inside out. So, grab your candle, sip your tea, and let's get into it. This ain't just talk. This is Spirit Gumbo with CQ. All right, now, here's your gumbo bite for today. Something short and spicy to stir into your soul. Ever hear the saying, "Not my monkeys, not my circus"? Here's one from one of my brother-in-laws that I love. That's an issue, not an issue. As a people pleaser, for so long I've been conditioned to respond to everyone's problems, no matter where I am emotionally, spiritually, or physically. And honestly, it's freaking draining. I want to help, and I'm sure you do too. That's just who we are. But there comes a point where we have to recognize our sovereignty and our energetic boundaries, because some people will drain you without even realizing they're doing it, and some absolutely know what they're doing. We all have people in our lives, and some of us are recovering from being that person who act like energy vampires. They pull, they push, they take, and they assume you'll hold it all because you always do. But here's the truth. You don't have to jump into their chaos. You don't have to participate in their circus. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep anyone else warm. Being able to spot the drain and giving yourself permission to step back is liberating. It's a reminder that your energy is sacred and you get to choose where it goes. Now, take that with you and stir wisely. Storytime with CQ. Seeing the pattern. For as long as I can remember, I've been the one people come to with their problems. I know for sure it started when I was a teenager, but honestly, helping others has always just been a part of who I am. I remember being in high school and seeing one of my classmates, someone I'd never even spoken to, sitting alone on the bleachers crying. I walked over, asked what was wrong, and just sat with her while she told me what happened. She and her boyfriend had just broken up. I don't really remember too much else. I don't remember what I said or if I even said anything to her. But I do remember that when she stood up to leave, she wasn't crying anymore. She thanked me for being there. That's who I am. And over the years, there have been times when it's been absolutely draining. You see, when you're that person, everyone comes to you. You sit, you listen, you help as best you can, and then they leave. And when no one's pouring anything back into your cup, that's when it starts to wear on you. I've had people in my life who were energy vampires. And looking back now, I realize most of them didn't even know it. Sometimes it was just needing a shoulder to cry on in the middle of a crisis, a breakup, job loss, illness. I've never minded being the one people turn to. And before we go any further, I'll admit it. I know there have been times in my life when I was the problem. I was the draining one. It happens to all of us. Stress and anxiety can blur our boundaries and turn us into someone we don't recognize. That's why noticing the pattern is so important. We have to be honest with ourselves when we realize where the work needs to be done. Here's the thing about being that person. I rarely feel like anyone's there for me when I need someone. Why? Because I know what it feels like to be the helper. Side note, I also have a hard time letting others in, but that's a whole different episode. I don't want to drain others. I don't want to be the person who only calls when there's a problem. I don't want to live in constant complaint or stay stuck in victim mode. But I'm also learning that being the helper doesn't mean I don't need healing too. And allowing others to show up for me, that's part of the balance. That's what understanding energy really looks like. Now, let's be real. Some people do constantly drain us. They don't have boundaries. They're always in crisis. And they don't see that they might be the common denominator. That's what we're diving into today. Today's main theme, protecting your energy. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is an emotional energy vampire? Because we throw that term around a lot, but most people don't realize how normal and how subtle it can actually be. Energy vampires aren't always the big, obvious, dramatic people we picture. Sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're quiet, sometimes they're malicious, and sometimes they're just wounded. But they all have one thing in common. They drain your energy without giving anything back. Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. Some do it out of habit, some out of fear, and some because it's the only way they know how to function, or it's how someone taught them to function. But the effect is the same. You walk away feeling tired, irritated, heavy, or just emotionally flat. Were you having a good day? Not anymore. Energy vampires show up in the same patterns over and over again. And once you learn to spot the signs, you can protect yourself before the drain hits. Here are some common characteristics and examples of an energy vampire. Stay consistently negative. They always have something to complain about, someone to criticize, or a reason why nothing is ever good. Like Aunt Edna, who always complains about the food someone else cooked because it'll never taste like her grandmother's cooking. You know, the grandmother who died in 1984. They need to be the center of attention. If they're in the room, the conversation magically shifts back to them, their problems, their drama, their achievements, their crisis of the day. You know, your coworker who still talks about the promotion they got 3 years ago, even though you just got one last week. They shift blame instead of taking responsibility. It's never their fault. Someone else always made them do it, caused it, or created the issue. Like that one friend who can't understand why no one wants to play with her son Timmy, even though Timmy is always the one starting trouble. They can thrive on drama and crisis. They're often the source of gossip, conflict, or the emotional wildfire that everyone else now has to put out. You know, like your cousin Irma, the one who changes her Facebook relationship status 3 times a week, drops a spicy message in the group chat, disappears for hours, and comes back like she didn't even light the whole thread on fire. They can use manipulation, even subtle manipulation, guilt, flattery, intimidation, emotional hooks, whatever gets them the reaction or attention they're after. Like Aunt Sybil, you know her. She always reminds you how much she does for the family, even though she hasn't really done anything except complain. They can live in a victim mentality. Their life is always harder, heavier, or more unfair than anyone else's. They rely on constant sympathy to maintain connection. Like that one friend you're excited to share good news with, and the moment you do, it somehow turns into a story about their struggle. They can't even muster a simple congratulations. Once again, I want to stress that we all can be energy vampires at one point or another in our lives. It's rarely done with malice or an intent to hurt. What we're focusing on in this episode are emotional energy vampires, the ones who drain without even realizing it, or who operate out of fear, habit, or a lack of self-awareness. They aren't necessarily cruel, but they're exhausting. And when you gently suggest maybe they're the common denominator, they look at you like you've grown two heads. We can't change them. They are who they are. Now, don't worry. The other kind of energy vampire, the ones who smile to your face while secretly hoping you fail, who follow your every move so they can copy or compete with you, yeah, they're getting their own episode. But for now, the real question becomes, how do we protect ourselves? Protecting ourselves from the drain. So, how do we protect ourselves from emotional energy vampires? Well, first, we have to get honest about what we're dealing with. Is this someone who's truly in crisis, going through a rough patch and just needing some extra support right now? Or is this a pattern? Because let's be real, even if it is just a stressful time in their life, that doesn't mean you have to light yourself on fire to keep them warm. Sometimes you have to protect your peace either way. Start by asking yourself a few soul-checking questions. Do I feel light, happy, and energized after talking to them? Or do I feel drained, heavy, and low-key annoyed? Do I catch myself walking on eggshells around them, always trying to manage their moods or reactions? Do I dodge their calls, take forever to text back, or secretly hope I don't run into them? Does every conversation feel like it veers into drama, chaos, or negativity? These are your body's quiet ways of whispering, hey, we don't feel safe here. They're subconscious signals that your energy is being pulled, not replenished. And the sooner you notice those signs, the sooner you can take steps to protect your peace, your power, and your damn nervous system. Steps to take to protect your peace. All right, so we've identified what an emotional energy vampire is. We've checked in with ourselves, asked the hard questions, and faced the truth about how certain people make us feel. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I want to be there for them. I can help them. I can hold space. Listen, I get it. I really do. You've got a big heart. You care deeply, and you probably believe it's your job to fix it or fix them. But let me offer you a firm and loving, no, we're not doing this anymore. Not your monkeys, not your circus. Let's talk about how to protect your peace and stop the energetic hemorrhaging. Step 1, adjust your expectations. You want them to show up like you do. You want them to pour into you the way you pour into them. You want mutual reciprocation and connection. But here's the truth bomb. They can't. Not because you're not worthy. Not because you're asking for too much, but because they simply don't have it to give or don't want to give it in return. And that's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to recognize it Seeing people clearly, not through the lens of potential or who you wish they were, gives you the clarity to take the steps needed to protect your energy. Because when you stop expecting a fish to climb a tree, you also stop blaming yourself for why it never does. Step 2, limit your exposure. Set boundaries around when and where someone is allowed access to your energy. And no, you don't have to announce it. You don't have to have a big dramatic speech or explain yourself. One of the biggest traps we fall into is trying so hard not to hurt anyone's feelings that we let ourselves get drained in the process. I'm not saying you have to cut people off entirely. I'm saying set limits. For example, if they're a coworker, maybe you do have to collaborate on projects, but that doesn't mean you also need to eat lunch together or grab coffee on your break. You can be kind without being consistently available. Step 3, protect your emotional energy. I'm not going to lie, this one's hard. I've struggled with it my whole life. Some people feed off your emotional reactions, your expressions, your tone, your engagement. It's not always intentional, but it's what keeps them plugged into your energy. So, if you do find yourself interacting with them, try not to give them the response they're looking for. When they start making dramatic statements or leaning into the complaints, keep your face neutral. Shrug it off, nod politely, like they just told you it might rain tomorrow. If they don't get the emotional charge they're looking for, eventually they'll lose interest and leave you alone. There's a name for this strategy now. It's called gray rocking. And while it's become kind of a buzzword, the concept is legit. You're not being cold or mean. You're protecting your spark. You're refusing to let them light a match with your energy. Step 4, avoid arguing with them. This one ties into step 3, but takes it a step further. You might feel tempted to challenge their twisted logic, their consistent negativity, or those wildly exaggerated claims they know how to throw around. But trust me, don't. Because the moment you do, you're no longer the helper, you're the villain in their next story. You'll be the one who attacked them, doesn't understand, or made things worse. Instead, stay neutral and walk away when you need to. No reaction is more powerful than a negative one. If you need a script, try something simple like, well, that's one way to look at it. Then change the subject or excuse yourself or just let the silence do the heavy lifting. Find a response that feels natural to you, and when they start their usual drama loop, just press play on that phrase and keep it moving. Step 6, when necessary, cut them out. I know. We don't want to go full scorched earth. Most of us aren't here trying to burn bridges. We just want to stop feeling like we're drowning. But sometimes this really is the last resort, and sometimes it's absolutely necessary. If it's possible and you've tried everything else, it's okay to cut someone out of your life. No drama, no big confrontation, just distance. Protect your peace, period. Now, if it's someone you can't fully avoid, like a colleague or a family member, then do what you can to limit your contact. Keep it surface level. Keep it brief. Keep your energy guarded. And here's the part that gets tricky. Other people may not understand. They might try to fix it, play mediator, or ask you to just talk it out. You don't owe them an explanation. If you want to explain, keep it simple. I'm protecting my peace. And if you don't want to explain, that's valid too. You get to decide what's healthy for you, and not everyone is meant to stay in your circle, especially if all they do is drain it. You deserve to feel full. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. Your energy is not a community resource. It's not up for grabs, and it's not something everyone gets access to just because they want it. Yes, we've all been the drain at some point, but healing means learning to take accountability and responsibility, not just expecting others to carry our emotional weight. And on the flip side, healing also means giving yourself permission to say, this doesn't feel good anymore. I love you, but I can't keep doing this. Or even just a simple no. You're allowed to be kind and still set limits. You're allowed to love people from a distance. You're allowed to choose yourself. Because at the end of the day, your light is worth protecting. And you don't need to burn it out trying to keep someone else warm. And just to be clear, what we talked about today, these are the emotional energy vampires. The ones in our inner circle, friends, family, coworkers, people we love who knowingly or not leave us running on empty. But there's another kind. These vampires don't come for your heart. They come for your aura. We'll get into those vampires next time. It's time for a tarot truth bomb, where spirit speaks through the cards and I don't sugarcoat the message. Today, I want you to ask yourself, where am I giving my energy out of obligation instead of alignment? What part of me still believes I have to earn love by being available? Where do I need to stop explaining and start enforcing? What does peace actually look and feel like in my body? And how often do I let myself live there? What fear comes up when I think about setting boundaries? And who taught me that fear? All right, so let's see what card we have today. So today's card is the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles stands with both feet planted, crown heavy but steady. This is wealth that doesn't shout, it holds. Calloused hands, long view, quiet confidence. He builds once and builds right because security is sacred. Nothing rushed, nothing wasted. This is mastery that knows consistency is power. I love that we pulled the King of Pentacles for our card today. I love my cards. Y'all know I say that all the time. But visually speaking, kings are about outward action. They're divine masculine in nature. Pentacles represents stability, abundance, prosperity. That's what they symbolize in the tarot deck. So you have that outward action of stability, consistency. When we're talking about setting boundaries with other people, we have to be consistent. We have to take those steps that are needed for our comfort. Again, Pentacles represents comfort and that space. So the King of Pentacles is saying it is time for our own comfort, for our own good, to start being more consistent in setting boundaries with people, places, and things that we need to set these boundaries with. This isn't about hurting people. This isn't about making it about them. This is about making it about us. A lot of us have a hard time making things about us because we were taught or we learned that us is a bad thing. No, this is about truly understanding where our boundaries need to be set. Because it's the King of Pentacles, some of you also are needing to start setting firmer boundaries when it comes to how y'all are dealing with abundance and prosperity. When we're feeling drained, we don't have energy for other areas of life. So this is also a call to action to make sure that where we're focusing for abundance and prosperity, that it's being that energy is being focused in the right direction. That has been our Tarot Truth Bomb. Spirit said what it said. Spirit didn't stutter. Take it in, sit with it, and do what you will with it. All right, now it's time for a Spirit Side-Eye, because some of y'all are out here playing with energy like karma won't slap you in the back of the head. This side-eye is for that tired old belief that just because someone is family, they are entitled to your energy. I'm sorry, what now? You mean to tell me that someone can disrespect your boundaries, drain your spirit, dump their emotional mess in your lap every other week, but because they share a bloodline, you're supposed to just keep letting it happen? Spirit in CQ says, I don't freaking think so. Family is not a free pass to chaos. Being related to you doesn't mean they're entitled to your light. Love can be real and boundaries can be realer. And sometimes the most sacred act of self-love is limiting access, even when it's someone who raised you or shared your last name. If they're only reaching out to take, if they ignore your needs, if they expect you to set yourself on fire so they can stay warm, then they don't get to hide behind the word family. Because energy vampires come in all forms, and Spirit says your peace is the priority. That was your Spirit Side-Eye. Now go sage your space and mind your magical business. Not everyone who drains you does it on purpose, but that doesn't mean you have to keep handing them the cup. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They help you shift what's safe, what's sacred, and what simply doesn't serve your spirit anymore. And listen, it's not your job to carry what others refuse to heal. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to stop overgiving. You're allowed to protect your peace. Because at the end of the day, your energy is your responsibility and your peace is your power. That's it for today's brew. If something stirred your soul, pass it on. And don't forget to follow, rate, and share your thoughts on any of our socials. In this episode, we named the emotional energy vampires hiding in plain sight, the ones closest to us who drain us without even realizing it. But before we move into part 2, we're taking a pause for the holidays. Next week, I'll be sharing a Spirit Gumbo Christmas special, a gentle, reflective episode for anyone feeling a little tender this time of year. Because for some of us, the holidays bring up more than joy. They stir grief, memory, and deep emotions too. Then, in the new year, we'll be back with part 2, Negative Aura Vampires, the ones who watch, copy, compete, and try to drain from a distance. Until next time, this ain't just talk. This is Spirit Gumbo with CQ.